big thing with this is, and it was something that I brought up earlier, is the language element of it. That's the bit of the social model that worries me, because no one knows where the fuck to look. So they sit there and go, can I call you this? Can I say this? Can I do this?
And that's why you hire the wonderful Mik Scarlet and Fab Access Consultancy and Training Services.
There we go.
Other training services are available, because there are agreed standards of language that kind of have come together over. When I worked at the BBC in the 90s, we had a regular meeting and we'd all come together and go, right, what do we call ourselves this year? And it started off disabled people, and then it was like especially able and
differently abled,
all those awful things. And we tried them and they don't work. They don't trip off the tongue. They're not grammatically correct, and they're just, some of them are just offensive. I mean, we never tried handy capable, which I adore. It's just the worst thing ever. But and I think one of the big confusions is we have languages international, and we speak the same language as, say, America, Australia, Canada. And they tend to use people first language, and we use identity first language. So we use disabled people and they use people with disabilities. But if you know any people who are disabled from those countries, they're all fighting to use the term that we're using. Political one. The big difference is, and this is something that is happening more and more. When I was young, most people who were disabled were to some extent or other political. They were fighting for equality, right? And like I said, I'd done some stuff where I said the wrong thing and did the wrong thing and presented on the wrong show. And then someone taught me why it was wrong. And then I became political. It shot my career, but it meant that I started saying no to work that I would have said yes to because I understood it was damaging. And I think that one of the things that's gone is we don't anymore do what Vicky did for me, which is teach each other why it matters. We have this kind of almost like, well, I don't care what language, call me what you like. Brilliant, that's what you like. But there are other people, me, that really hate being called the wrong thing because it shows a lack of respect and a lack of understanding. And so it's why I teach, language is a very nice money spinner. And I always say to all my delegates, one of the great things about the disability language sort of situation is it does change. So this is one of those jobs I'll do until I retire, because I'll have to come back in 2 years and teach you something new. And the perfect example is hidden disability, right? Now, hidden disability comes from America, came over here, and we went, hang on a minute, we're not hiding it. It's not hidden, it's invisible. And then someone went, hang on a minute, it's not disability, it's impairment, because disability under the social model doesn't mean what it means in America. Ah, right. So then it became invisible impairment. And now, because those people with invisible impairment said, but it's not invisible all the while. And in the same way that we use the term non-disabled instead of able-bodied, because people can have a working body but still be disabled, right? Why don't we use non-visible impairment? So the correct term now, basically chosen by those people who are active in the world of choosing what things are called, right, have gone for non-visible impairment. And that's what hidden disability became. And that has happened in about 4 or 5 years. Do you know what I mean? So it changes. The big one is, right, I always say, you can call yourself what you like. I have a T-shirt with Crip Power on it that I bought off Crippen, the artist. We use Crip all the while in the 80s and 90s. It was our word. We also use spaz. We use loads of words that now we wouldn't, right? Yep. But Crip is still one we use. But we were fighting to get society. I mean, back then, everyone called you handicapped. We were all invalids. Yep. The benefit you claimed was called invalidity benefit, right? And the language around disability was awful. So like we now trying to get people to say, look, don't say you're suffering from cerebral palsy. Say you have cerebral palsy or live with cerebral palsy. And then I always say, live well with cerebral palsy, because it makes people understand that you're not just existing, I'm living with it, I'm living with it. It's yay. And I think that's the thing. And so you can use whatever language you like, but there is something about community. Just because you don't like a word, if we've all kind of gone, yeah, this is the word we should use, it makes it so much easier for non-disabled people to go, oh, right, just use that one. Because if you tell people, well, I don't like disabled people, I prefer to be called, physically challenged or something, whatever, I don't know, then that's great for you, but you've just made someone go and use this term to other people, which might get them punched. So I mean, and I think that's the thing. So, and because the non-disabled community panics so much about language, and I'm always like, look, to be honest, if you get the access right and you get the service right, and the language is not going to be as important as you think. Yeah, but it's the one that they worry about the most. It's why we all need to stop kind of going, well, I don't care, so why should anyone else? The point is that I don't care. I make a living doing this. I don't honestly care. If someone uses a term I don't like, I'll tell them to fuck off. Do you know what I mean? I'm built out of, indestructible Mik Scarlet material. So I've been called all manner of things. To be honest, handicapped and invalid is the nicest thing I've been called. So, and I've been attacked in the street and violently attacked in the street quite a few times. And, I don't want people to do that. So I think that, I get it and I understand it. And I think it's really good to have an outlet like this where you can talk about stuff. I mean, I've been watching some of your stuff and some of the people you have on are just fantastic. The guy who was talking about legacy was just, I was like, oh God, I want to reach into the telly and kiss this bloke, because it's exactly how I feel. This idea that I know I'm not going to see a society where being disabled isn't seen as being less. I know it. I'm going to die. I'll be born and I'll die in a society where I'm seen as being less valid than someone if I had not been born with cancer. Yeah. But I know that when I die, the society I live in will see me as more valid than it did when I was born, and more valid when I went to school, and more valid when I tried to get my first job and when I tried to go to university. I mean, when I was young, you couldn't go to university unless you needed no help at all. If you needed any assistance, you couldn't go. And you also had to spend all 3 years in the student digs, like the first year digs. Yeah. And they weren't adapted. So you basically had to struggle up and downstairs and do all this shit, and none of the and also you couldn't pick what subject you wanted to study, because you had to go to the university that would have you because you were disabled, not. So I wanted to study fashion, and I ended up getting offered sociology at bloody Durham. And it was like, no thanks. And then my wife went to Durham to study physics and went, but Mik, it's on a great big hill. Where were you meant to go? I was just like, the only place that had me was like a ski slope. So, you just stay here all the time and you'll be fine.
So don't roll down the hill.
Yeah. And I think that I moan a lot about that things were okay. Well, things were better than we talk about in the past. But they have got a lot better than they were in some ways. And in other ways, they've slipped back. Like, I used to be able to go clubbing and go to all manner of inaccessible clubs. We've talked about this before. And crawl up and down stairs and do all this stuff, and it was great. Now you wouldn't be allowed to do that. So I used to go to gigs. I mean, I met my wife in clubs. I'd meet her in gigs. I'd talk to her because they didn't have an enclosure where you had to go. Right, so I could just sit with all the people. It meant I didn't always see the band. Who cares? I was having a fun time with my mates. Yeah. Now we can go to gigs more. Lots of gigs wouldn't let you in. Sorry, mate, fire hazard. But now we can go to gigs more, but we can't go to gigs with more than one person. Yeah. You've got your companion, and that's your lot. So if you want to go mob-banded to go and see your favourite band and have a laugh, it's really difficult. Yeah. So it means that I could meet what became my wife in the Town and Country Club. And it's like, all right, Diane, all right, Mik, hey. And we sat together and I flirted like an amateur, but I was back then. And now, if I was the same, age and, we were meeting, she'd be in the club or the pub or the gig, and I'd be stuck behind a barrier, not allowed to go out and talk to her. She's not going to come over and sit with with the disabled people, is she? She's having a laugh with her mates. So we don't meet. So what looks like a better way of doing it. Oh, well, now more people can go to gigs, but we're all stuck in our little pen, you know, kind of, you go over there, don't you come out, you know. And so there were things that were good, and there are things we can learn. So like a lot of this stuff was done during that transition when the DDA came in. People went, shit, we need to get more disabled people in, we need to be more accessible. They came up with ideas, and then they went, that'll do, done it. And here we are, you know, nearly 30 years later. 28 years later. Do you know what I mean? It's like, look what. It's not. So when I'm 60, we will also mark the 30 years of DDA. Imagine I lived 30 years of my life with no equality law. Just totally nothing. You could just call me anything you like.
That is quite scary.
You say, you're not coming in. No, you know, piss off, crippled bastard, to my face. I mean, I've actually had TV execs say that to my face. I've had record company executives as well saying, we're not signing you, you crippled bastard. And that were the exact words that I had said to them. So, do you know what I mean? And that would, you know, now they'd say something like, well, I don't think you'd be quite the right kind of, we don't have the right market for you, and something equally bollocks. They'd mean the same thing, but at least, something I actually quite miss is people going, no, fuck off, you cripple. Because at least that way you knew what they were thinking. Whereas now they're, being told to fuck off is much easier to deal with than kind of, well, anyway. So what we'll do is we'll ring you and men, but I think it's a yes, but I'm not sure. And then you never hear from them again.
It's the politically correct way of saying fuck off.
Well, exactly it is. I think more, it's not necessarily politically correct. I think it's more they're thinking, shit, if we tell him we don't want to sign him or we don't want to work with him because he's disabled, he'll sue us.
Yeah.
Especially if they email it to you.
Yes. Tip right there.
Dear sir, thank you for your email. I'd just like to remind you that an email is able to be put in court, so I'll see you in court, matey. And to be honest, that's what happened. The Equality Act and the DDA came in, and people learned they didn't have to change anything because the law's useless. Yeah. But what they did have to do was just watch how they said it and what they meant. So you get a lot of people now say, well, health and safety, mate, can't come in. Yeah. Now, it used to be fire hazard. And what they meant was, if there's a fire, you might try to escape first, block the stairs, and then everyone just falls over you and everyone dies and we all burn. Yeah. And I always used to say, well, do you really think I'm going to do that? You know, I'm much more likely to kind of find a place to sit and be sensible. Now what the law says is you're meant to create fire-safe areas where I can go and wait for the fire. You know,
wait to burn. I love that.
Wait to burn. Wait to burn slower. That's basically you burn slower. You roast rather than burn. But they still don't do that because while that's meant to be what they do, they don't do it. So instead what they do is they just sort of go, no. They don't tell you no because we've not bothered to follow the law. They're still blaming us for it. Yeah. So the law didn't do anything. And I mean, I think I said this to you before. I went to on the night of the DDA becoming law, I went out clubbing and I got turned away from 5 clubs, all of which I used to regularly go to before the DDA. And they're like, oh yeah, no, our provision isn't like up to code now. Whereas when it was just a bodge job, yeah, come on in, mate. And I think that's the truth of what happened. The DDA and then the Equality Act that followed after it doesn't have any teeth. And I think for your generation and for the younger people, we all need to campaign to say, look, it needs to be so that you can ring a policeman. Hello, is that the police? I've just been barred access to a service. Yeah. Not, right, well, I'll have to get evidence and then I'll have to find a solicitor and then I'll have to pay for it. Or I'll have to try and hope that I get a no-win, no-fee deal and then I'll do it and then I'll take it to court and then I'll fight and then I'll do while I've been discriminated against. That's just not fair. Especially when the law also, unless you're fighting case law, says you can be refused entry on a Monday, sue them on a Tuesday, win on a Wednesday, go back on a Thursday and be refused entry again. And then you have to start the process again. Yeah. So it's a great law, that. Nice one. So Mr. Cheerful here. And on that note, so I think, and again, we're back to legacy and we're back to the fact that we do have a lot in common. Whatever your impairment, whatever your condition, we all face this barrier. I'm working really closely with a wonderful young dancer, actor and trainer called Libby Welsh, and she's got cochlear implants. And when you're talking to her, she was raised despite being deaf, to be oral. And the idea that we're still raising children who cannot hear to speak because sign language is giving in, to me, is a criminal act. But yet, so she's now teaching herself and being taught sign language so she can, because she can't be part of her own community because she doesn't speak language.
Yeah.
And she's not hearing, so she can't be part of our community because she's still got a lip read. And as you can tell, lip reading me is a fucking marathon. So,
tired. Yeah.
So, and it opened my eyes to the fact that, you'd go, oh, hearing impairment and paralysis, they're not the same. We are. We have the same things. Yeah. She's forced to do something to fit into a society that she doesn't fit into. She's told that she shouldn't be part of her own culture because that's no good. There isn't a culture. Deaf people don't have culture and all this rubbish, and it's affected her. It's made, it's damaged her confidence. It's damaged her ability to fit in with people like her. And I know that because, like I said, when I was raised, I was kind of raised to think that I was like super crippled. I was like, you're not like the other disabled people, Michael. You're different. And that meant that when I met other disabled people, I had the same feeling about them that non-disabled people have. I was like, I'm not like that one. I know that one's a bit lumpy. And it took me understanding the social model for all of this to fall away and for suddenly to go, no, we are a community. We are all share the same exclusion, the same issues. And it might be that they affect us in different ways. But that exclusion and discrimination is the same. It's the same root cause that we're seen as being less than perfect. Whereas obviously we both know, and of course our partners both know, that we are actually more perfect because of our imperfections.
Yes.
And
free cinema tickets, free gig tickets, free parking. The collection's quite big.
Oh yeah, no. What is it? And you can drive my car as well. I keep saying to my wife, we've been together now 28 years, right? Married for 18. I keep saying to her, look, you can drive my car. You're free insurance, right? It's on Motability. You can
yeah.
I don't like driving. London girl, you see, don't like driving. So I'm like, but it's free. I grew up in Luton where, we if we could, we'd get a car to drive to our car because we hate walking. Well, we build them. If you build them, if you build your cars, you've got to be in a car. Everyone has a car. Yeah. Most people have at least one car. We're probably to blame for most of the flooding in Bedfordshire alone because we tarmac everything and put cars on it. There are benefits. But more importantly, I also think that we bring an understanding.
Yeah, we bring a maturity to it as well.
We're younger. Like, when you're a young buck, like your good self, but you've seen shit, you've seen, it's a bit like, coming back from NAM, isn't it? I've seen things, man, I've seen things. And it is like that. You do, and it's funny because my wife's got a scar all down one side of her body from being burnt as a child. And it's one of the things we share. I was always like, I probably wouldn't go out with someone disabled. And I did meet a couple that I fancied. And when I asked them out, they said, no, I won't go out with anyone disabled. And I was like, okay, respect. So, but like now, I say to Diane, you are disabled. And she's like, well, I'm not. And I'm like, no, you are. Under the social model, having a scar means because I've seen the way people, when we first got together, people would scream at her in the street. Like, oh, what's happened to your arm? And I was like, what the fuck? I'd never heard anything like it, People had never done this. No one ever came up to me and went, ah! It was like, like the invasion of the body snatchers, ah! And people would just scream at her. And I was like, this is so weird. And she's had all the surgery and, kind of a really weird childhood where she spent loads of time in hospital, loads of time, all her parents going, oh, God, it was all our fault. You got burnt and all this. Exactly. My mum used to try and work out what she'd done to cause my cancer. Mum, nothing. It's cancer. It just happens.
It just happens,
because this is something I think that's really interesting that society has done recently is now, don't you think everyone kind of talks about disability as if it's something we earned? Like, well, you must have done something or parents did something. You need to eat more or yoga or I don't know. And you're like, no, it's part of biology. All we are proof of evolution because the bits of us that don't work. Like I always say to it when I'm doing my training, I say, look, when you watch, what's his name, Planet Earth 3, and David Attenborough.
David Attenborough.
That's it. And he goes, here I am in a cave, And here's a blind spider, and here's a blind snake. And they weren't blind. They used to see, but they went into a cave. And because being blind is part of biology, animals are born blind. In a cave where you can't see fuck all, being blind isn't a disability anymore. So you're not going, oh no, I can't see, but no one can see. Right? So then they have an advantage because they don't need to generate eyes. They don't need to feed the biology that doesn't need to be there. So that means they survive. So they have a advantage, and that's what it is. And it's, I say this to all young people I meet, kind of what you've got to appreciate is being disabled is actually just proof that we are still evolving. And, we hear about, you hear stories of giants and dwarves. Well, what do you think they were? My family, one of my cousins, 6'8", one of them 6'9", right? And they're quite, my family is all giants. I'm kind of a normal height person for 6'3". So if you're out and you come from an era where people are 5 foot, which is kind of what we were in the past, someone of 6'7" is going to be a giant. And if you're, you are a person of short stature, people are going to go, oh, look, and in a village where there's a few of you and you all get together and then your kids have it. And so then suddenly you've got a village of like, oh, look, it's a village of dwarfs. And you're like, they're not different from you. They're just different. Even, they've all got together. It's fine, and they all live in little houses. And when I was a kid, I used to watch a thing called Charlton and the Wheelies. And it was about a kind of an alternative, a cartoon world where it was stop frame animation actually, but where everyone didn't have legs. They had wheels. They had 3 wheels and they'd all scoot about. And the whole world was built for people with wheels. So they all lived in little domed sort of buildings that were low and everywhere was ramped and it was great. And then a dragon called Charlton, who came from the north. I have no idea why. Hello, little old lady, he'd say. And he fell through a thing and fell to the wheelie world. And he was walking about in a world built for wheelchairs. So all of a sudden he was too big. And it's like, so in a world where everyone was on wheels, having legs would mean that you were disabled. And that's an interesting. So when we end up, what was it, Wall-E? And we all end up, living in spaceships, great big fat people on kind of floating chairs, right? Then we'll all be all right. Then who will be disabled then? Well, I don't know, but I would imagine it might be the person that can stand up because their shoes will wear out quicker, if nothing.
Yes.
Now, that's what you call an awful bloody podcast because I haven't let you breathe. I haven't. There's no edit points. There's no way of cutting this, and you haven't got. Well, I had some questions. There was no fucking point even trying to answer. It's just talk solidly.
Well, I didn't want to say anything.
Quick, ask some questions, and then that way you can cut out all of that waffly bollocks.
just quickly, you obviously mentioned that like you've recently gone up to the CEO position, and you've confessed that that's not your natural position. So sorry, now you've gone, I've gone. What's been the learning curve there? Like going into somewhere that's quite corporate, where you do have a board to answer to.
Right. I think one of the big ones I learnt, and I learnt this at school again, was one of the great things about being disabled is if you fail, no one kind of says to you, "Oh God, that's terrible," right? You kind of get patted on the head for good trying. Effort. Yeah, well done for trying. So basically, I took, and I've also believed that it's much better to try something and fail than not try something and then go, "What if?" Mm-hmm. I've always thought that. I nearly died when I was 15. I remember laying in bed thinking I'm a virgin. I've never died in my hair. I've never been to a nightclub, and I've never had sex with a beautiful woman. And I thought that you had to do the first 2 to get the last one. And it was new romantics, man. And so when I came out, I said, right, that's it. I'm never going to do that again. If I'm ever going to die again, I'm going to think of all the things I've done, not all the things I haven't done. So when the chance came up, I applied because I, like I said, applied for lots of silly jobs that I may or may not have had the qualifications for. And I've also kind of become okay with the fact that I am not corporate. Like, I'm not your conventional CEO. Charity is a little bit less. It's not like, the boardroom of Barclays. I couldn't really work there and go, hey, you lot in suits, you're all friendlies, right? But, I went for a really big business meeting last week, and I just, we were talking about stuff, and I was mucking about and being me. And at the end, the guy I was meeting with said, this has been the least business-like business meeting I have ever had. But it's going, things are going to happen from that. And it kind of comes back to the idea about inclusion, that if we stop doing things the way we're meant to do them, the world becomes a better place. If an ex-new romantic punk rock cripple with stupid hair, even now in his nearly 60s, right, can go and do that job, then anyone can do that job. And I genuinely think, but I think this is a problem for a lot of people, is that they hold themselves back. They don't think they can do it. And the answer is, especially if you're disabled, try, have a go. Because if you fail, trust me, everyone's still going to pat you on the head and go, well, at least you gave it a go, right? So you never get in trouble. I failed my A-levels so fucking miserably, you wouldn't believe it. Right? All of my friends got absolutely torn a new arsehole by their parents, and they had to go back and resit them. And my mum went, well, you went to some good parties and you've got a girlfriend. That's all right then, isn't it? And that basically was I left school with kind of, one A-level instead of 3 I was meant to be doing, and a CE in art. And my mum was over the moon because I'd got a girlfriend and I'd got a life and I'd got friends, and that's it. So if I go into this, and I went in not sure, I went in trying to be quite CEO-ish and management and all that, and it didn't work. So I've come back after a little hiatus, and I'm being much more me. I'm focusing on the things I'm good at, and that's how it's working. So that's what I'd say. And also remember that we have so many skills that haven't got a piece of paper about them. Yep. The soft skills that you develop as a disabled person mean that you are probably the best skilled person in any building, any room, right? I've learned this. You go into a room and you've got all the senior managers and blah, 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 and they're all like, oh, I went to this and I've got a degree in that and I've been running this for this. And yet they don't have any, they can do their little
common
bit,
sense,
but they can't do other stuff. Whereas we are really good at multitasking, at adapting. We spend our whole lives going, how am I going to do this thing I can't do? How do I make it so I can do it? Because we haven't got the world that you don't have to do that in yet. Yeah. So, and that's a skill. And that's, so it's much better to go for the job, try, and you'll face people being dicks, but remind them, especially if you've got the job. But of course, under the law, you are entitled to your reasonable adjustments. And that might mean that you have to take some time off every now and again. You're allowed to go to hospital visits, and that's counted disability related sick leave, not sick leave. So you can have that on top of your sick leave. That you're allowed to work from home. You're allowed to get adapted equipment. All of this stuff is different ways of working. Earphones, if you find noise sensitive. There's so much stuff that you're entitled to that mean you can do your job to the best of your ability. And this is what it's about, that actually, when you get all this stuff, not only will you do it to the best of your ability, you'll probably be the best person in the bloody office. And that's the truth of it, Yeah. So, we get told we're crap far too often, and we're not. We're brilliant. You can learn to do a job, but you can't learn to be really good at being a person. And
and
personally, I think you've met a load of non-disabled people. Some of them are nice, but most of them are useless.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, very true. But the other thing as well is, like you've just said there, like I think a lot of the time, particularly in the business context, everyone sort of forgets that we're human. Like that's the other thing.
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's more that they think we're other. Right, and I think, like you said, not human, but there's people, and then there's disabled people, and it's like, and this is why I think people go, oh, I like people first language, because people, and then disabled, and it's like, but grammatically it doesn't work. I'm not getting into grammar. I did eventually do an English degree, so I'm not going to bang on about that. But grammatically, it should be disabled people anyway. But we are still all people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the bit they forget. And I think that, but the point is, like, getting a job interview is tough anyway. But if you can get that, go in and just be the best version of you can be. I mean, I got a job at Network Rail, right? This is a proper senior management job. I was earning so much money, I didn't know what to bloody do with it all. It was ridiculous, right? And I went in and they'd asked me to ready a presentation. And I turned up with it on a key, as you do in the world of technical stuff. And they went, oh, no, we don't have any computers for you to sign into because you can't log into any Network Rail computers from outside with external USB. So did you print it up? And I was like, no, because I'm living in the 21st century and not in the 19th. I didn't get the Caxton printing press out and hand out a leaflet on the inclusion of disabled people. So what I did was I acted out my presentation. And I went like, this slide has got this on and it's got this because I can remember it. And so I kind of did a charade interview and I was like, well, no way I've got this. I've just failed miserably. I'm basically mucking about with a room full of people. Instead I got it. So that's the thing to remember. And this is where I get worried, you see, because he's disappeared again, which means we've already done this once before, viewers. But the internet killed him.
I'm still here.
And I'm still here. If you're still recording, good. Because on my world, he's gone. But yeah, so that's it. So don't ever think, oh, I don't. Much better to apply for 100 jobs and not get any of them than it is to not apply for any of them and not getting them. Do you see what I mean? Yep. Like you just keep going. And the same goes for anything. You know, I mean, you know, I every now and again I kind of think, shit, I can't believe that I ended up with my wife. The girl I remember the night I met her, I saw her in a club and was like, oh my God, that's the most perfect woman I've ever seen. And went over and kind of, hello. And 6 years later, she finally went out with me because apparently I wasn't obvious enough in my chat up lines. But you know, just you know, kind of just weird. The going for stuff is better than not. If you see someone you fancy, talk to them, right?
Yeah.
And the idea, oh well, non-disabled people don't want to go out with disabled people. Rubbish. They want to go out with people that are nice and fun and you know, and they don't care. Some do, but you know what? That means you've filtered out the dickheads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I've actually had girlfriends and I've talked to them about, you know, what my impairment is, and you know, and they've gone, oh, I don't know, I'll have to think about it. I've dumped them on the spot straight away. Bang, that's it, you're out. Because I'm not, you know, you're not doing me a favour, right? But you know, and I've had girls go, oh no, not interested. Great, cool, nice one. Do you know what I mean?
Honest, yeah.
Well, and again, we're back to that sort of thing of, you know, you get all these. Scope did a survey, and 90% of someone said they wouldn't date a disabled person. Well, you're dating a non-disabled person. I'm dating someone that thinks they're non-disabled. All of my ex-girlfriends were non-disabled. All of my friends that are disabled have non-disabled partners. All of the celebrities you know of pretty much have non-disabled partners. So where are all these people? Are we just the lucky bastards that have got the few that will? Have we got the other 2% and everyone else is screwed? No, it's rubbish. Just if you go up to someone and say, would you do this thing? Loads of people are going to go, no, not really, because they don't understand it. But when you're with them, you suddenly become a person.
Yeah.
You become a human, like you said. Yeah. And that's the thing. People, in abstract, we're scary and we're unknown, but in reality, we're just people. And you know, so don't let the fact that you live in a society that tells you you're shit stop you going out there, because most people don't really think that. We're just told it because people read the Daily Mail and, you know, listen to.
I mean, really quickly, like, the one story I always tell is like people used to always make the assumption of me like, oh, like you got a girlfriend, is she disabled? And I always love playing the scenario. Now, I know there are disabled couples out there, but I always love playing the scenario of, babe, I can't reach the jam, neither can I. Oh, fuck.
Do you know what? Many years ago, I met Shannon Murray, and Shannon, I think she was 18 or 19, and I was about 23, 24. And I mean, Shannon Murray has always been beautiful and amazing. And back then she was like the first model, I mean, you know, the first disabled model for Mac, all over New York, really wonderful. And I remember meeting her at a party, and I remember trying to chat her up. And she just said, "Nah, don't want to go out, you mate." And I was like, oh, "Okay, cool." And then we started laughing about the fact that who'd be the one to put the last chair in the car? Yeah. Because if I put her chair in the car so she could get in, where would my chair go? Because but then she'd need to get out. So then I'd put my chair in and then she couldn't get in. And so we'd have to go everywhere together in two cars. And it's like, and it's sort of those, and that was, and I'll never forget, because it was like, part of it was like, oh, and then part was like, that's total respect, because that was just brilliant. The idea like, no. And she sort of said that it's so much, I mean, you think it's bad now. The convention back then was that, people had come up. I mean, I remember going to clubs and people would come up to my then girlfriend and say, what are you with him for? Why don't you come home with me? I'm a real man. I'll give you what you need. And all stuff like this, just to my face, right? And ironically, it's why I used to like fetish clubs, because you went to fetish clubs and everyone there thought, well, he's here for a reason. He must do something right, because he's got a girl with him. So he must be into something. He must be good at something. So at least they didn't think I was asexual, which is what everyone used to think. And but that kind of thing. I've forgotten what I was saying now. That's good. Luckily, you said, there you go. Quick, get in there.
So, well, one of the last question I was going to ask was, last two, is obviously you've mentioned a couple of times that you've done a lot of work with Network Rail.
Yep.
And so I know that you do a lot particularly in the space in London. You're quite well known around the Camden area.
For being the weird, sweary cripple bloke.
Yeah, that one. That's the guy.
Mix out.
What's been like your experience? Because I know obviously at the moment there's a big push to make London more accessible. In my opinion, it's fucking shit. And like, it seems that there's this big push, but as we've said in this podcast, like they've not asked anyone that's got or been there or done that.
I think one of the big problems is with all of it is people don't understand that lived experience is not just like joining a forum or being on a panel. There are people who are professional, like myself, who you can hire, who are experts. We're not experts because we're disabled. We're disabled and we're experts. So we know what we're talking about and it matters to us. I think one of the big ones is a lot of times with these kind of promotional, let's make things more accessible. You get a load of non-disabled people that are doing it because it's the right thing to do. Whereas for us, it's because it's the essential thing to do. Yeah. Not only for us, but like I said, the legacy thing, the thing that I don't want a new 23-year-old Mik version that's around today to be going through the same shit I did. And at the minute, they probably are. If not, like I said, it might be a bit worse in places. So, I mean, London has so far to go that it's ridiculous. And every now and again, I mean, there was some article in something going, London's one of the most accessible cities in the world. Bollocks, right? I could name, right, Barcelona, if you haven't been and you're disabled, it's fucking brilliant. I mean, it's just great. You can go on the beach, go on a cable car. Ironically, we are still thinking of retiring there, even though Brexit has royally up. Not that I'm going to say anything about Brexit, but even down to sort of weird places. Like I was working in Charlotte in North Carolina years ago, like in the 90s, and that place is just so accessible. And I've said to my American friends, hey, go to Barcelona, it's great. And they've come back and gone, it's shit, because they live somewhere even more accessible than that.
Yeah.
So I think that the idea, and I mean, people say things like Dubai, it's fantastic, and
because it's fucking new.
Yeah, but what I mean is, right, if you come to London, they're fucking knocking stuff down at a rate of knots and building all this new shit, and still building it bad and wrong and not accessible. And and I mean, like the Elizabeth line was meant to be completely step free end to end. It's not. So, right? Because, only the new stations, not the old stations. Well, just adapt them. Before Brexit again, I was working for SNCF in France, advising their rail company on how to make the Parisian rail network accessible for the Olympics and Paralympics next year. And they were like, we bought these trains and they've got automatic ramps. But some of the stations, the platform's too high or too low. Yeah. So we're going across the whole network, raising and lowering the platform. We don't do that.
You've got freight trains.
Well, my personal favourite is London Bridge. They have 2 level access platforms. The rest are fucked. What the fuck? Like, why?
What's weird as well is you've got things like Thameslink, right, where you can get on at St Pancras and go all the way down to Blackfriars, and it's all raised platforms, level access, straight.
Yeah.
But they haven't done the rest of the network. It's still the same line. And coming from Luton, I've used Thameslink to go to Luton, and the gap is probably about that. And I could just about do that in a chair if I was, feeling dangerous and wasn't overweight, right? But that would be such an easy gap to raise. Oh, well, the freight won't be able to get through. Well, then build a freight line around the... Do you know what I mean? Like, the idea that we can't do it for you because of something that or what I've always said is, why don't you just raise the freight bogies up? Like, all railways are just sets of wheels with things stuck on top.
Yeah.
So all you've got to do is take all of the freight carriages up, stick the amount that you've raised the platform up by on top of the bogie, and put the thing down again. So it's not much to do.
Yeah. My other one is, why don't you retrofit it? So, okay, you're saying that you can't raise an entire platform. Okay, raise where the accessible carriages are.
But no, what I mean is, like, the freight trains go through at high speed, and they hit the platform, tore the platform up, smash all the... So just raise the trains up. Do you know what I mean? So raise the platform, raise the trains, done, sorted. They go through fast, everything's wonderful. This is what I mean, though, about why we need to be there. We need to be at the table. Because at the end of the day, we look at these excuses and go, but they're bollocks. This is rubbish. You can't say the same thing that they said. Like, I'm now 58, right? When I was 18, railways were still saying the same thing. Freight, difficult, hard, troublesome. And the other day, like I said, in Newmarket, I was filming, and the trains to Newmarket are level access, completely level with the platform. I've never seen it before. Little thing comes out, and you jump in and out. I was like, oh my God, we've got it here. So it can be done. They bought trains that match the platform, so it can be done. So why aren't we doing it? Well, because there's no impetus to do it. There's not the political will. We are, again, as you said, not seen as being human, not seen as being people, part of the society. So they're not doing it, which is the social model in its entirety, that we aren't seen as valued members of society. And that's what disables us. Trains, planes, buses, everything can be made so much more accessible with very little thought.
And cost.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is, cost is fine. If you imagine this train in France that they bought was from Bombardier, which is the same types of trains that certain companies have bought here, but we ordered them without the ramp and the French company ordered them with the ramp. In France, they buy all of their lifts in bulk. They have a warehouse filled with thousands of lift fittings. And so it costs them about £500,000 a lift. In England, it costs 2 million per lift. So for the money that we spend on one lift, you can do a whole station in France, because we buy per job and they buy because we want to do the whole lot. And it's political will. And we're back to why people like me became quite political. And when we say political, I don't mean party political. I mean, they're all as bad as each other at the moment, quite frankly. But there's this kind of idea that, and I think many people agree, that maybe we should have a change just to see. And I think that's it. And what we're trying to do is go, well, you lot have been in for ages and you're doing, you're not been that good. So we're going to put pressure on this lot, but we'll also put pressure on you, because if you want to stay in power, you might need to attract some of us, because we aren't feeling very supported at the moment. And I think that's the thing. And that's, you might go, well, they're not, no one's doing stuff for me. But if we all speak together, and it doesn't matter if you don't like the word and you don't like this and you don't agree with all of it. If we all just stand together and go, all we want is a fair crack of the whip, then we can all become people, and we can have all different political views and different social views and religion and everything. Because we finally reached that point where my impairment and your impairment and everyone else's impairment doesn't mean that we share the disability element of who we are. And that's the kind of thing, that's the thing that people like, old duffers like me have been fighting for bloody decades. We're still not that much nearer, I won't deny, but things are a bit better than they were. And I think one of the things that's happened, especially with, younger people like yourself, is that you've come up and you're putting pressure, you're pushing against the door too. And I think eventually they'll have to open it in. And all we've then got to do is not let them close it on us again. So we just keep going in, keep going. Don't do what my generation did. Go, oh, I got through. Fuck off. Because basically that's what we did. We and then when we got the Equality Act, we took our eye right off the ball, which I'd still to this day, kind of feel ashamed to be the generation who went, we've done it, great. And then about 3 years later go, what the fuck have we done? So yeah, it's all our fault.
Yeah, and on that note, we're getting all political.
Yeah, totally. End it now, because it's not quite politically correct or not quite political.
I ask this question to every guest, which is, what's one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with? It doesn't have to be disability related, and it also doesn't have to be overly political. It's more of a pet peeve of yours. It's your opportunity to iron out one of them.
What is my pet peeve? My big pet peeve is non-disabled people telling me what language I should use. That really gets me. The idea, you shouldn't call yourself that. I can call myself whatever I bloody like, mate. You can't call it. In the same way I can make a joke about being disabled. You can't. I can. And when we get together, we can all take the piss out of each other, but you can't take the piss out of us. I'm absolutely all for that, right? Just because, when I was younger, people would take the piss quite royally and you'd be like, wanker. But I am, like I said, I do believe that the concept of political correctness is good. I am very woke and I'm proud of it. And so mainly because I make a living out of it, which is something all disabled people should remember. You can make a very good living if you jump on the PC woke bandwagon, because you can spend your time teaching people why
other computing shops are available.
I say, yeah. But yeah, don't know. I think one of the things that always really bugs me is when people call me the wheelchair. It's not PC. It's the opposite of PC. But when you turn up and they're like, "Oh yeah, we've got a wheelchair," and you're like, "No, I'm not a wheelchair. I use a wheelchair. I would even be in a wheelchair. I have a gentleman in a wheelchair, or I have someone here in a wheelchair. That's great. I can kind of deal with that. But
a wheelchair. I'm reduced to just metal.
Yeah, it's like saying, "Oh, I've got shoes here." It's like, do you say that about anyone else? No, you don't say, "Well, here comes a biped." This shoes. But we're in a wheelchair. And it's just weird.
Here comes Doc Martin.
Yeah, that's it. It's like but I do think this is what we need to start doing to get them back. Just talk about walkers like shoes. It's funny because I call walkers bipeds. I do it all the while, and I get in so much trouble from disabled people who can walk. I'm a biped, and I'm like, no, it's not derogatory. It's just true. If you walk about, you're a biped. We aren't. You're a part-time biped. I'm a never biped. I'm a no biped. I am whatever four wheels are, which I must find out because that would make it funny.
Quattro.
Get Audi Quattro. Get in a Quattro. But yeah, so that's it. I'll think of it. This is one of those questions that I'll think of the answer about 3 days later when I go, oh,
that's right. You can text me.
Anyway, that's it. I'll stop talking so you can say goodnight and then go away.
Just quickly, where can people find you if they want to speak to you, contact you?
Right. I am on social media at Mik Scarlet. And when I say Mik Scarlet, as you can see, those people that can't see, my name is spelled M-I-K, no C, because it was designed in the 80s with Rick Mayall and, Nick Kershaw, Mik Scarlet. And the Scarlet is one T, like the colour, because Captain Scarlet had one T because he dressed in scarlet. So that's where my name comes from. So at Mik Scarlet is pretty much all of my social media things. And I have a website, which is, of course, mikscarlet.com. And the fab website is phab.org.uk. And there are contact forms there that you can contact me. But also you can DM me on X or Twitter or whatever it is. I never know what to call it anymore. Because I do a lot of, as anyone that follows me on Twitter will know, I do a lot of waffling about bollocks on there. Sometimes sensible, sometimes sad. Most people now know all about my body and how crap it is because I'm permanently moaning about how biology is the worst of the sciences because it's too squishy and doesn't work. But that's it. And the launch of the Access Consultancy, the Fab Access Consultancy and Training Services, Fab Axe, will be in January, where we've got our first project where I'm working with the children's area of natural beauty on making sure that the children's and the countryside around the children's become accessible to all. And then there's other jobs I can't talk about because they're big, but they're not signed off yet.
NDA.
So that's it. Yeah, that's it. Well, just more, as we now know, because
we're definitely going to have to get the editor to remove that bit.
Yeah, it's a cutthroat business out there. Being disabled, we all pretend we're friends, but we're not. We'll stab each other in the back seats, looking at each other.
Right,
we'll wheel over each other just
slash
for that
each other's tyres.
You wait. Josh Widdicombe is leading the last leg, at which point the fight is on.
Bitch, I'm first. I'm ginger.
Yeah, don't worry about that. I went out on a night with Alex Brooker and made such a tit of myself because that boy can drink.
Oh, really?
Oh boy! There's a photograph of him. It's from the disability list, 100 list, a few years back, and he was voted number 1. And it's at the South Bank Centre, and he's on a table, and I'm not joking. It's just filled with beer. I've had some party times, but that man can drink, and he was just working his way through. Everyone had bought him a pint, so it was all free, and that man was not going to let that go. He was not going to go, well, I've had 10, I've had enough. He was just working his way through. It was an interesting night.
Well, quickly say goodbye, just so that the editor's got a cut point to take it from. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, Charlie. Thank you so much. It's been fantastic. And I'll let you now do your bit where you say thank you, and then we'll all go away and I'll shut up.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a great episode, and it's always nice to have a guest that doesn't give you one-word answers, and that's definitely true with you. Thank you so much for coming on, and
thanks for having me.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah, cool. It's been great. And hopefully we'll get to meet up again and talk about fashion.
Yes.
That's how we met, wasn't it? We met doing a film about fashion, and I arrived, and these two young, gorgeous disabled people were like, where the fuck did this freaky old bastard come from? And the answer was just at the top of the road because we were in Camden. And then I talked about fashion from when I was young, and they were like, good God, this old bastard. But there you go. And that's how we met. So
yes. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Not Quite Podcast. Please make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram to get regular updates about the podcast.
These bad dads make it hurt.